Hi, I'm Dooma Wendschuh. I'm the co-founder and CEO of EBU, a Denver-based company which uses cannabis as a raw material to manufacture a variety of recreational and medicinal products. Now, we've just finished a successful fundraising round, and so that's what I'm here to tell you about. I'm going to give you 10 pro tips on how to raise funds for your cannabis business, which I imagine a lot of you are about to start doing here in Florida. This is going to be a lot of fun, I promise. But first, there's one thing I've learned being in this industry, which is that there are basically two types of people who go into the cannabis industry. And so what we're going to do is a little quiz to assess which type of person you are, because if my speech isn't right for you, I don't want to waste your time. You can go outside, have a cigarette, do something else. Okay, this quiz is exactly one question long, and it is multiple choice. We can do this. Question number one, I need to advance the slide so you can see the questions. Question number one, what is motivating you to get into the cannabis industry? Is it because when you were young, your drug dealer had a cool car and lots of bling? Well, if that's you, this talk is probably not for you. Are you here because, yeah, that's right. Are you here because you've done some calculations and you realize that if you got a license, how easy it would be to divert some of your percentage of your product into the black market and make a real fortune? Well, you know where the door is, folks. Letter C, are you here because you believe that vices are good business and you want to exploit people's addictive tendencies? Well, maybe you might have missed the memo, because we all know that cannabis is far less addictive than alcohol or nicotine or many of the recreational narcotics, legal or illegal. And if you're one of those poor souls who thinks you're going to exploit people, well, you know what to do. Let's say your job is really hard and you have this image in your mind of a cannabis user and he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that works that hard. And you're thinking that whatever you're doing, starting a cannabis business, a dispensary's gotta be easier. Well, I got news for you, it's not. And GTFO, bitches. All right, so maybe you're here because you're a shark. You know, you've been real successful in some other business. You think by throwing around a lot of money, filing a bunch of lawsuits, you can cheat hard-working cannabis entrepreneurs out of their businesses and take them over. Not in this industry, you can't. So that's good. I saw a couple people leave, actually, but I wasn't expecting that, but I'm glad that we got rid of them. And we're going to focus with just the serious players who are left. And I'll tell you that every single one of these stereotypes is based on a person, like a real life person that I've met since I got into this industry just 6 months ago. So this is who you're going to be dealing with, people. So get ready, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. Basically, you know, the truth is, in the cannabis industry, we are under a microscope. It's like John Winthrop said, and after him, John F. Kennedy, you know, we are as a city upon a hill, and the eyes of the world are upon us. And so the last question, or the last answer, I guess, in our quiz, is that if you are ready to stand proudly upon that hill, if you're one of those people that believe that we, those of us in this room, have the power to change the world, that together we can start an industry to revolutionize medicine, to give patients a better choice, to turn people's lives around, to give people back control of their own health care, and someday, when it becomes recreationally legal here in Florida, to provide a healthier, safer alternative to alcohol. If you want to make a difference, if you believe you can make a change, if you have a passion for the plant and for this movement, then this talk is for you, and I'm happy to have you in the room. Thank you. We're just getting started. Before I get to the 10 tips, which I'm sure you're all dying for, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am and what got me into this industry, because I feel like it's important to know who's up here trying to give you advice. I grew up right here in Florida, in Miami, and you know, it was a great experience, but I left and I've started I started an entertainment company in Los Angeles and also with an office in Montreal, and we made video games, some of the larger video games out there. And you know, it was a great experience. I didn't think twice about entering the cannabis business. I had no thoughts of it whatsoever until at some point, I realized that there was this green rush going on and there was opportunity to make some investments. And I started looking for a company that I could invest in the cannabis industry. And I didn't really find any, Everything that I found was either a grow operation or a dispensary. And, I think if there's one thing I know for sure, is that if you look across this great nation of ours and you look at all the sports stadiums, you're going to find that they're named after brands. They're not named after farmers, collectives, or bars, which is basically what a grow operation or a dispensary is. So I started looking for a brand that would make sense to invest in. And I began to become familiar with all these different brands. And I realized that, as a brand, that's what's going to separate your business from everyone else when cannabis becomes a commodity, right? So, which is why I was looking at this. And I teamed up with my good friend, John Cooper. We started looking at all the different options that were available to invest in. And we found there was a lot of edibles companies where the edible would always taste the same, like always the same flavor and sweet, delicious flavor, but the psychoactive experience wouldn't always be the same. And same thing with these, vapor companies that are doing the vapor pens. They always look cool in your hand, but, the cannabis consumer isn't using cannabis because of how it looks in their hand. They're not using it because of the taste of the sugary syrup that goes along with it. They're using it because of the psychoactive effect. And I just couldn't believe that there was no one out there branding the psychoactive effect. And so came out to Denver at this point, and did some more research, went to a bunch of different companies, and we learned that there are just these two huge problems in the cannabis industry. First one is, really obvious if you've ever been inside a dispensary, which I imagine many people have in this room. There's too many choices, right? It blows your mind. There's 500 strains of cannabis out there. There's all these different products. You walk in and you can be completely overwhelmed. You may choose a product, in a recreational state like Colorado, a product that's intended to help you go out and have a good time with your friends that evening, and you may end up passed out on the couch because you got confused and you chose the wrong thing. We call this problem confusion. Now, there's also another problem. Let's say and that's good, it's good, right? You find something that works for you, a brand of cannabis product or a strain that you really like, and you go to the next dispensary down the street and you order that same strain or that same product, and what do you find? It doesn't feel the same. This problem we call consistency. And at this point, I realized that there are these two huge problems in the industry. There's a lack of brands who are branding the psychoactive response. I wasn't going to find a business that I could invest in. Instead, what I realized is I would have to start that business myself. So with my business partner, John Cooper, we decided to found EBU. I sold my shares in Secret Agent, so this is all that I do now. And believe me, it's a lot to do. And we started out in Denver, and it's been just under 6 months, and we've had an incredible run. We have raised $2 million from outside investors. We've basically closed our funding round, which is tremendous. We're actually opening another round now for different terms. Thank you. We've got a staff of 6 people. We're building out our lab. And we've started, that's the lab, we've started prototyping our formulations. We also have prototyped some of our most challenging delivery mechanisms, such as a Listerine-style strip. And we've appeared on television 5 times, been in the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg News, New York Times, et cetera. So I bet you're wondering at this point, what is EBU anyways? Well, the best way to explain it is to say that we are a distillery. It's a metaphor. We don't actually make the distilled alcohol product, but it's very similar. What we do, just like an alcohol distillery would take a raw product like potatoes and turn it into vodka, our raw product is cannabis. And we take cannabis, and through our proprietary distillation method, we transform it into something new. Just like when you look at a bottle of vodka, you wouldn't say, hey, that's potato juice. In the same way, we don't expect people to look at EBU products and say, hey, that's marijuana, because it's cannabis is used to make it, but it is something which is, just like an alcohol distillery, predictable and reliable. Predictable meaning when you look at the package, you know exactly how it's going to make you feel, and reliable meaning every time you try this product, it's going to give you that same sensation. And we're doing massive sort of clinical trial styles, marketing studies in order to deliver a quality product to our consumers, to ensure the efficacy and safety, and to make sure that we deliver on that brand promise. That's what EBU is all about. So that's basically what we do. I think it's a pretty good idea. I bet you're thinking that must have been really easy to raise money for, but actually it wasn't. I've raised money for a lot of different video games in the past. You know, some of the budgets as high as $45 million. And I have to tell you that it was a lot harder to raise the $2 million in this industry for this company, maybe 1,000 times harder than it was to raise $45 million for the last game that we did. And you know, you guys are coming into this industry trying to do what we've just barely completed, and it's going to be a challenge for you too. So I'm hoping to save you some of that pain with a couple of helpful tips. We'll see if that works. You know, just to give you an idea of what we're up against, you know, we're based in Colorado where there is a residency requirement. What that means is if you don't live in the state for 2 years, you cannot hold equity in a cannabis company. I don't think they're going to do something like this in Florida. I hope they don't, but I guess you'll never know until the rules are finally written sometime next year or the year after, depending on how long things take. But when we went out to investors, we were giving them this proposition. We were saying, hey, we would like for you to invest in our company. It's going to take a lot of money to make our minimum viable product. We don't have any proof of concept. We haven't made anything yet. If you're not a Colorado resident, you cannot have equity in the company. Oh, and by the way, the whole thing is federally illegal, and you might end up losing all your money or going to jail. And when you compare that to like raising money for an iPhone app, it's an entirely different proposition, right? It is not easy, and it takes a lot more money. You know, 200 grand, you can launch a great iPhone app. You can do a small game for a handheld device. This took minimum of $2 million to get us started. So it wasn't easy for us, and it's not going to be easy for you guys. You know, you guys are going out there to start your businesses. You're going to be going to, you know, individual investors, because unless you're doing something ancillary, the VCs, the regular funding sources, they won't touch this with a 10-foot pole, you know? Hell, you can't even get a bank account, right? So, like, don't plan on VC. And you're going to feel like every day is a battle, right? And in the end, you're going to have lots of funny stories to tell your friends, and those will be your battle scars. I'll tell you one real quickly. We were talking to an individual investor out of New York. He flew into Colorado Springs, was going to come up to Denver, but his plane was late. He says, come on, can you come down instead and meet me in Colorado Springs for dinner? I was like, okay, sure. Drove an hour and a half, show up at the restaurant. He's there. He's got some other guy there I don't recognize. He says, this is how this is going to work. You're going to sit here. He's going to sit here. You're both going to pitch me while I have my dinner. I'll decide who I invest in. I should have got up and walked out, and I didn't. But that should tell you how difficult raising funding was. All right, so these are the 10 tips that I'm going to share with you. Hopefully, they're going to be, you know, useful and save you some of the pain that we went through. Number one, honesty is the best policy. You know, we operate an extremely transparent business, probably more transparent than we should. We have a weekly call with all of our company investors, and we tell them everything, the good news and the bad news. And of course, you wonder, why would you tell your investors the bad news? Well, you tell them so they don't hear it from someone else. And you know, some of our investors, I asked them afterwards, why did you choose to invest in Ebu? We're a startup with no product, nothing. When you were presented with opportunities to invest in successful, growing companies that are doing tremendous revenue, and what I heard time and time again whenever I asked that question was, it was the transparency and the honesty that they felt safe making an investment with us. Number two is a big one, hire the right lawyers. I've personally, like out of my own pocket, spent over $100,000 on attorneys, and a good portion of that was spent on great attorneys doing great work, but also a lot of it was wasted because, you know, I did the thing that everyone does when you're starting a company. I tried to save money. I brought in law firms that didn't have the expertise, and let me tell you something, if you are trying to raise money for an industry which is federally illegal, you need a top-notch securities law firm, or you're going to make a lot of mistakes, which we did. Number three tip is that only a no is a no. You know, when you're going out there raising funds from people, and you're forced, as you will be in the cannabis business, to really go to these individual investors, these are the kind of people who are either, you know, very, very busy because they're running their own company and they're busy making a fortune, or they're very, very busy because they've already sold their company, or they've got family money and they're busy traveling around the world. And returning your phone call, returning your email may not be their number one priority. That doesn't mean they're not interested. You have to be persistent, but you have to be polite. Next is, oh wait, I think I pressed the wrong button. There we go. Take notes and be methodical. You know, first of all, methodical doesn't mean pitching to anyone you talk to. It means being smart about who you pitch to, choosing the right organizations when you go out there and raise money. I'll save you all a lot of trouble. If you have an opportunity, if you get accepted, if you can present your business idea to the ArcView Group, you should do it. Our experience is the number one investment angel group in the cannabis industry, and they've really helped our business tremendously. I would also say that this means be methodical in how you pursue conversations with investors. Write everything down. When was the last time I talked to this person? What are the names of their children? What do they do on the weekends? Like, have all this information, and that way you can track when it's time to call them again, when it's time to follow up, and you have something to talk about when you reach out to them again. Simple, but it makes a big difference. Practice makes perfect. If you're going to go out there and present, practice your pitch before you say it to anyone. When we signed up for ArcView, they told us to practice in front of a mirror. I've done a lot of public speaking. I'd never practiced in front of a mirror before, but I tried it, and it works. It's actually a really good idea, so I think you should do that. Also know the answers to the most commonly asked questions. We were caught off guard in an ArcView event where someone asked us something that we didn't know the answer to, and all I could do was laugh. And that's better than nothing, but it would have been better to have a prepared answer. Next question is, it is a war of attrition. You do not have to have the best business idea. You do not have to have the best pitch. What you have to do is be the last one standing when everyone around you gives up. And believe me, in this industry, it is so difficult, they will be giving up. And if you can last, you will be fine. Next, keep your valuation realistic. I don't care how successful you were in your last business. I don't care how successful you think you are going to be in this one. If you go out there to investors with an unrealistic valuation, you will get shot down because you are asking them to make what may be the riskiest investment in their lives, short of going to the craps table. Number 8, this is very important in this industry, don't count commitments. In the tech industry, we can do this kind of thing where you tell everyone you're doing a round, you'd like to raise some money, this guy commits this much, this guy commits that much, maybe they send you an email, and then on the day when you're closing your round, you call them all up, and they all wire the money, and you're done. Like, that works in Silicon Valley. Nothing even close to that will work in the cannabis industry. People are flaky. These are tremendous risks you're asking people to take, and if someone says they're going to invest, you close them that day. Get them to wire the money, you do a closing, the next investor comes around, wire the money, do another closing. We did 35 closings to finally finish our round. That's a lot, but it was what we had to do, and it's the only way to do it. And as part of that, you never count on your commitments. You don't tell people that you've raised more money than what's actually in your bank account, because chances are you haven't. Any of these people can change their minds at any moment and not give you what they committed. And so if you tell someone, you've raised a certain amount and they're thinking of investing, they might invest less because they think you actually have more money than you really do. And next is sort of know when to eject. And this is just to counterbalance what I said before about, being the war of attrition and only a no means no. Those things are all true, but at the same time, you need to know when you're spending too much time on an individual investor. If you're trying that hard to turn someone's maybe into a no, that's probably not the kind of person you want on your team as you're building your business in the long run. And lastly, the most important tip that I can give to anyone in this room is to solve a problem that needs to be solved. Now, if you're here in this room today because you believe you're going to start a grow operation or a dispensary, I got news for you, buddy. That problem has been solved years ago by pioneers in California, people like Steve, and people in Colorado like Meg. There's no innovation there. If you want to raise money, if you want to attract attention in this industry, you need to innovate. You need to contribute. You need to be more than just another dispensary, more than just another grow operation. You need to be something that solves a real problem for people. So sure, go make your dispensary, go make your grow operation, but do it in a way that provides real value to consumers, something that someone else down the street can't just start up and replicate in an instant. And the good news is that won't be hard. This is such a young industry that all it has are problems. Pick one and solve it. That's all you have to do. So I want to leave you guys with just a final thought. And the nature of this thought is hopefully going to be more encouraging than all the depressing stuff I've told you so far, which is that I think everyone who's talking about the cannabis industry right now is just dramatically underestimating the total market size, the total opportunity. You hear these numbers rolling around like it's a $1.7 billion industry in the US and all that, and that's great. But when you really think about it, when you take away all of the stigma and everything else, this is so much more than medical cannabis, right? What this is something that, in my opinion, is bigger than the internet. And I know that's a bold statement, but I'll explain it. How many people in the world use the internet? It's 2 billion people. How many people in our world receive some kind of a benefit from a recreational psychoactive substance daily? I would say almost all of the 7 billion people in our world use either alcohol, nicotine, or caffeine. And think what you will about those things, but it is undeniable that our society derives tremendous benefit from recreational psychoactives. What relationship between two people would be where it is if it wasn't for the responsible use of alcohol? What business, what startup would be where it is if it wasn't for that productivity boost associated with caffeine? And now we have the opportunity for the first time in really 8,000 years to experience a fourth category of legal recreational psychoactive, and to experience the calming, the healing, and all the incredible things that cannabis can bring to us, and to do that in a legal fashion. So thank you guys very much.